Up on the healing bench today, I've got my TL1000R. A while back, I was having an issue with the shifting. It would get caught. So I had pulled all this apart to check some springs and stuff behind this cover, and I did not have a new gasket. And what ended up being the problem was this whole conglomeration, but yeah, it works. But so I'm gonna go ahead and pull all this back off. We can see oil here, and it's been burning off. A little bit of a drip there. So I'm gonna pull all this off. I got some gasket paper. I'm gonna make a new gasket and put all that back together. I wanna do some stuff with this wiring. That looks a little loose. Oh, that's the whole terminal over there turning. All right, we'll figure that out. I wanna clean some of this stuff up. The belly pan, we can see the oil has been leaking. And right here, it's just been melting the plastic. This is a cheap Chinese set of plastics. So what I'm gonna probably do, and that is on this side. You see right here where it was burning. So what I'm gonna probably do is, I got some more of this exhaust wrap. I'll probably pull all this off and just rewrap this pipe all the way down to help see if I can insulate some of that heat. Never did find a swing arm nut to go on there. A couple other little things that I need to do. But this bike has been amazing. These Road 5s, I love these things, especially for this heavy of a bike. Went out a couple days ago and put a thrashing on the front tire. It's pretty much all worn off now, but I'm almost to the wear bars, so we'll see. But anyway, that's the project for today. Let's get this mess cleaned up, get that oil leak fixed, and move on. Alright, so we got the cover off, and I was looking at this gasket, and I don't see anywhere where it's torn. Kind of what my thought pattern was. Just kind of looking over it. I do see a little lower spot there, which it's really thin right here, so that's probably where the oil was leaking from, and that's at the bottom. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go against everything I stand in, and I'm probably just going to put some sealant on this. I'm letting the oil drain out to where it stops dripping so I can clean that surface off. I've already scraped them, but I want to clean the surface off, get it clear of oil so I can put a light coat of sealant, and I'll probably just reuse this. I'll think about it some more. But while that's doing that, notice that these terminals were loose, and this battery is an AGM battery, and both of them were loose. So we can see here, and it's actually got bolts that hold this clamp on, so I just put a little bit of Loctite on those, and I'm just going through and tightening those up to secure those. Clean this wiring up a bit. So unfortunately, I had to drop the back wheel. So the back wheel's sitting on the bench. I had to pull the axle out to be able to get the front sprocket off. I just couldn't move it up because when I put this chain on it, it had a smaller front sprocket, and I went 2 teeth up in the front, which of course makes the chain shorter because the sprocket's bigger. And I did that because in the turns with this big V-twin, torque was just unmanageable, and of course I've got a bum right arm anyway, so I just basically tamed it down a little bit. So that's why I had to pull the front wheel, push it all the way forward, get the chain off the back sprocket so I get the front sprocket out so I can get that cover out. And that is a bear. You have to do it that way because that cover has got a bolt back here, which I did a quick tip on how to get bolts out that are recessed like this. And when you pull it out, it hits the chain, so you have to manipulate the chain, push it up, and hold your tongue just right, precision tongue angle, to get that out. So yeah, that's why all that had to happen. You can come in here and just clean up all the dust and goo. This bike gets ridden a lot, and it gets ridden hard. And then this happened. We were out riding one day, and my shifter peg fell off, and a guy just happened to replace his rear tensioner bolts off a MT-07, and he happened to have the bolts and the nuts, so we just slapped it on there, and as you can see here, it's scratching into the frame. Like I said, I ride the bike. It's not a show bike. It's not a show bike by any stretch. I ride the shit out of this. So that was a temporary solution that managed to stay permanent for a while. So I'll probably jump on the lathe and make a new one and do basically like I did over here. I made that on the lathe. Put a nylock nut on the back. So I'll make a new one of those to get me some clearance so it stops rubbing there. Anyway, like I said, go through, tighten those up, and keep on plodding forward. Alright, so we got our cover on, and I just got the bolts finger tight or hand tight with an extension with a socket on there. I'm going to let the gasket sealer harden up, chooch up for about 15 minutes before I tighten all that back down. Now I know what somebody's going to ask. Somebody's going to say it, or they're going to think it, so I'm going to try and nip this in the bud now. Why is there so much stuff right here? Well, obviously the battery's right here. So the TLs, most sport bikes have them up here under the seat. But the TLs, the designers, since this was quote unquote a race bike back in the day, they wanted as much mass as far forward and low as possible because this thing is wheelie happy. Not really happy, wheelie happy. So I've got some accessories. I've got, I don't know if you can see it, but it's the same thing that's on the ZX9. I think I put this in one of the other videos. But I've got some little switch here that gives me the voltage for at the battery, and it's got two USB ports. With these older bikes, I don't run without knowing what the stator or basically the charging system is doing. So I've got that. So that's one set of wires. Another set of wires is these things have two fans on them. It's really wide, but it's got two fans, and ironically there's not a fan down here on this radiator, but the thermostat kicks these fans on at 220 degrees Fahrenheit. And when you're sitting right over the rear exhaust, which is right there, and that's the back cylinder, when you're sitting over this, when it gets to 220 degrees to where it kicks the fans on, you're getting a lot of heat, which is why they say TLR stands for testicles lightly roasted. So what I've done is on this side, mounted a switch here that kicks on that cooling fan, and it vibrated because I've been playing around in here, so I've got to go in there and tweak some stuff. But so, and that's just one fan. The other fan is still controlled by the temperature sensor, so this one will kick on at 220, but I normally watch the gauge really close. If I'm in stop and go traffic, at about 190 is when I kick it on, just to help get some airflow through the motor, or through the cooling system. So I have manual control over one, and the second one is just here on the temperature switch in case I forget, which I don't hardly ever do, but it's just kind of a safe. So that's what this plug is. This plug is getting wire from or power from the switch, which comes down here, goes back up to the switch, goes back down, and just ties right into the fan right there. So that's 3 wires right there. I've redone the charging system, which is they put the regulator rectifier right under the seat here, but I put an R1 regulator rectifier here, and I've got pretty good size double sized cable coming back, tying back into the battery, just so I get good voltage. And now this thing, I get 14.1, 14.2 all day long. So that's what a lot of this garbage is here. And unfortunately, the battery's here instead of here. If it was here, then all of this would be under here and be no big deal. Another thing, I don't know if you've seen any of the videos, me talking about this, but this thing used to have a rotary shock on it. And I took all that off because when I bought the bike, went through and I had to fix a bunch of stuff. But anytime I would corner, the back wheel leaned over, would skip across the ground. I was getting no articulation in the rear. So I've actually got a R1, I think it is, rear shock. And I made this plate to mount everything. So I've actually got a real rear shock. Now, a keen eye among you will notice there's no spring on that shock. But what they done was you've got this guy here, which is what they call a spring on a stick. There's no shock dampening happening here to here. It's just the spring to hold up the rear. And then that's why I took the spring off of the R1 shock that's down inside here, because there's no linkage. It just goes straight from a mounting point straight to the swing arm, where sport bikes have different linkages to help get you better ratios. So with the spring that was on this shock, it was just way too soft, unrideable. So I just pulled the spring off, left the spring on a stick in there. But yeah, I knew somebody was going to ask about why the battery's here and all that mess. We've got a bird out there on top of the roof dancing around. So here's the other fan. So most of this, it's not bad. It's ugly, but it's not bad. So I just want to either tie it up or rewrap it, maybe possibly put it in this sleeve if possible. But I've got to get all this taken care of first. So I'll give that about another 10 minutes. And I can tighten those down, start reassembling that. I'm going to have to look at the O-ring on here because I see oil seepage, which is not a problem. So yeah, having fun. Went ahead and spun this up on the lathe real quick. Nothing fancy, 1/4-20 bolt. The idea here is this thing. I guess I should have checked it before I made this video. But I put this little spout on here, and that's going to go, oh, fits perfect. Right inside the hole of here, but it doesn't go all the way through. Only goes halfway through. This bolt here is just for holding it so I can tighten the bolt on the back side. So basically I'll pull this down, assemble it all right here, put shit tons of Loctite on this. It's a grade 8 bolt. Put it on there, hold this with a wrench, tighten up the back side, let the Loctite sit, and then just pull this one out. So that's my idea, and I'm sticking to it. Day 2 of doing a little bit of maintenance on the TL. Got it all put back together, got the chain back on. Did rewrap this pipe, spaced out the fairings. We can see here the heat's just causing it to droop. Put some more insulation in there, but I think she's ready to go rock and roll. So fuck 2021, fuck 2022. I'm taking this thing out. Well, got the girl out for a ride. New shifter nub here. Feels pretty good. It's on there solid, Loctited. Hopefully that doesn't come off. Still need to work on the suspension a little bit more. Giving these Road 5s hell. Really good tires. Really enjoyed these. This is my second set on this bitch. This down here is ugly as sin. Since it's just plastic, what I may do is pull it back off and heat it up with a heat gun just to kind of bend it back up into place. But I think with the added air gap and stuff, may have gotten that solved to where it's not burning that anymore. I think I got the oil leak solved. Won't know until, well, a little while. Let's see what we did to the front tire on the way down here. Yeah, front tire's got some texture. Almost to wear bars. About time to replace that. Sad part is it's worn on the sides more than it is in the middle. Yeah, she's a good old girl. Really enjoyed this thing. Got the wires down there cleaned up. They used to come right through where you can see it on the battery. A bunch of little things taken care of that's been neglected. But now, I'm just gonna enjoy the 60s weather. Well, so the ride didn't go like I expected. I started feeling really weird sensations in the front. I thought it was maybe the angle of the roads. No, fucking front tire. Yeah, good day. Good day to be alive.